Welcome to Capitol Hill, where the promises on carbon pricing are beginning to pile up, and the debate over global warming is certainly creating some heat. I'm joined today by Liberal MP Dan Tehan and Labor MP Brodtmann. Welcome to Capitol Hill. Gai, we'll start with Christmas Island. There are discrepancies in the headcount on Christmas Island, and there's now questions over whether the department, whether all the detainees who escaped on Christmas Island have actually got back. Given those discrepancies in the numbers, is there case for sending over a few factional leaders who can do a headcount?
Look, this morning the Minister had advice that the numbers were all in check, but we've since received subsequent advice that that's not the case, and so we're just seeking whether they're doing another head count, and we'll get advice on that once it's received. So it will take time, but we are seeking clarification on the head count.
In the midst of all the problems of the days of protest, the continued boat arrivals with asylum seekers now having to be taken straight to the mainland, a problem like this doesn't help, does it?
Well, what we've seen in the last few days there hasn't exactly been pretty, but the situation is now under control. And most importantly, the government has realised late last year that there were pressures on Christmas Island, and we had to do something about it, which is why we came up with the mainland solutions. In terms of we've also conducted a review we're going to conduct a review with Dr. Alan Hawke and also Helen Williams, both prominent Canberrans, both esteemed former public servants, and so they're going to be conducting the review. So there's a range of things actually happening, and most importantly, we've actually sped up the processing, the regime. So that's now, the security checks are happening quicker and the processing's happening quicker.
Dan Tehan, your immigration spokesperson Scott Morrison is continuing to prosecute the case for the reopening of the processing centre on Nauru. This issue tends to play well for the Liberal Party in states like New South Wales. Does it play as well in your state of Victoria?
Well, I think the debate on this has changed dramatically in the last couple of weeks. The Labor government, the Gillard government's policy is a complete mess. I think people are starting to understand and realise that right across Australia. I think that they'll look at Nauru now as a real option, and an option that will work, because the government's policy isn't working. We heard the Prime Minister say she had the situation under control 2 weeks ago, yet we still have people unaccounted for on Christmas Island. She failed to answer questions on it today in question time, as did the Immigration Minister. And as your introduction so rightly pointed out, the Immigration Minister is a good numbers man in New South Wales, but why isn't he doing the numbers on Christmas Island? It's a debacle, this policy.
But why is the Coalition pushing Nauru and not backing the Prime Minister's push to get a regional processing centre? Aren't they effectively both aimed at achieving the same ends?
Well, because the regional processing centre option is a joke. Look at the Foreign Minister. We have the Foreign Minister flying around the world, doing good work on a no-fly zone in Libya. Why isn't he putting the same sort of effort into trying to get the regional processing centre going? What's the Immigration Minister done in this regard? They aren't serious about this. They are putting all their efforts into other options, and they just floated that idea and they've done nothing about it.
We are serious about this issue. We realise that it's a regional problem that needs a regional solution. We're looking forward to Bali next week, where we can discuss the issue in greater length, and also, most importantly, looking at discussing the whole issue, the nub of the problem, which is the people smuggling issue.
Could I just ask a question on that? I'd just like to know, when do they think they will have the regional processing centre up and running?
With that question without notice, we'll turn now to the Parliament, where the insults were flying, both in the parliamentary chamber and outside it. The Prime Minister, Julia Gillard, has stepped up at her attack on Tony Abbott, accusing him of being a climate change denier. This is the tenor of the debate in the Parliament today.
How will she feel in her electorate, in the electorate of Macquarie, saying her political party is led by a climate change denier and that she stands for no effective action on climate change?
We all know the connotation that the Prime Minister is trying to bring about by using the word denier. We know that she is trying to allude to the Holocaust. It is offensive and it must stop.
I'm not a doctor, Mr Deputy Speaker, but I tell you what, I think we are in the presence of a condition, a chronic condition, TDD, Truth Deficit Disorder. That's what we have seen from our Prime Minister in recent days as she comes into this Parliament as she comes into this parliament, it's almost like she's trying to earn frequent liar points as she flies through question time. I've got to say, I reckon frequent liar points would be a marketable commodity inside this Labor caucus.
Dan Tehan added to that. Julie Bishop also called the Prime Minister a compulsive liar in the party room today. Wayne Swan called the opposition oddballs, and Nicola Roxon called Tony Abbott weird. Is any of this helpful?
Well, I think the debate should focus on the facts, and we need to get back that we'll put 6.5 cents a litre, cents on petrol. Well, we do know this, and that power bills will go up by $300. They're the facts that we need to focus on.
But it is the leadership of both parties, isn't it, throwing around the insults, raising the temperature of the debate to get a reasoned debate on this. Does that need to happen? Well,
I think we do need to have a reasoned debate on it. The feedback I'm getting from my local communities are that they're very concerned at what this carbon tax will do, that it will send jobs offshore, and as well, emissions will just increase overseas and won't really reduce here in Australia. And they're the facts that we need to get on the table, and I think that's what we need to concentrate on.
Gay Brodtmann, the government clearly stepped up its attack on Tony Abbott on the question of whether he believes in the climate change science. He has said most recently that he accepts that climate change is real and that humans contribute to it. In the end, would it be better prosecuting your case than attacking him?
I just want to start with the first question, the fact that what does Tony Abbott believe? 1 minute he's a denier, next minute he's a believer. You go over his statements over the last few years and you don't know where he is. At the moment he seems to be a poster boy for the climate change sceptics. Today he's sort of saying he's a believer. I mean, what does he actually believe in? Who knows? And also, what do members of your party believe in? Greg, the member for Flinders and the member for Wentworth are believers, and yet you've got other people in there who are vehement sceptics, who are vehement deniers. So what does the opposition actually believe? That's the first question I'd like to know. In terms of what we're doing on climate change, I think that yes, we do need a healthy debate on the issue, and that's why we've got a whole range of options out there in terms of educating people on what we'd like to do. I've been doing mobile offices in recent weeks and just talking to people about it. And contrary to what's happening in your electorate, Dan, in my electorate, people are very, very positively disposed towards it. They have been since 2007. They do want action on it, and they do see what we're doing is the right approach.
Maybe the insults are flying because a bit of a lack of substance. Indeed, in the Parliament today, both the opposition and the government were focusing on what we might term the known unknowns.
If we provide tax cuts to assist, he will take them away. If we provide pension increases to assist, he will take them away. If we provide direct payments to assist, he will take them away. The Leader of the Opposition stands for taking money from Australian households. He should come very clean about that.
If she's accusing us of inventing a carbon price, she should stop inventing tax cuts which don't exist.
Gay Brodtmann, can the Prime Minister really attack the opposition leader for promising to repeal tax cuts she hasn't committed to giving?
The issue is that what the opposition leader is embellishing and stirring up all this fervour amongst the community and lying to the people about what's actually going on, pulling these figures out of thin air about what it's going to cost. You know, today we had $70 to BlueScope or whatever, or to Paragon Printing, a whole range of these figures just plucked from nowhere. It's absolutely ludicrous. What we are all about is tackling climate change. We're about household assistance, and we're about wanting to maintain jobs.
But the Prime Minister is trying to mount her own fear campaign, warning that Tony Abbott would take away tax cuts and direct assistance, and she has committed to none of that yet, has she?
Well, we have committed to household assistance. We've committed to ensure labour and tradition. No, and that's to be worked out in over the next coming months. We'll be having discussions with industry. We'll be having discussions with business, with the community, with peak associations to discuss what form of assistance needs to be provided to households in terms of what shape that will be, how much it is, and also what price we'll be fixing on carbon, and also the assistance that is required for industry. So we'll be having those discussions. That detail will become clearer as we have those discussions, but it's incredibly important that we consult with people on it, and what needs to be remembered is we will be providing assistance to low-income households and also people on fixed incomes, such as those on pensions. And there is the possibility of a tax cut in that option, in that process. We're considering that option.
Dan Tehan, the opposition has raised in Parliament time and again questions about the price impact on people, raising specific figures. You've done that yourself today.
Yes.
But that's all predicated on an unknown carbon price. How do your figures have any validity?
Well, it's based on modelling done by the government itself. We've picked a range that we think is a reasonable range. We doubt that the government will go lower than that. They even could go higher than that. We need
But none of the precise figures are known yet, are they?
But the only thing certain about this carbon tax is uncertainty. And what we have to do is illustrate to the Australian people what its impacts will be. And that's what we're doing. We have taken a very moderate rate of the price on carbon, and we have highlighted to people what this will mean. Now, so far the government hasn't been able to respond to that because there is no certainty about it. All they have done is create massive uncertainty out there, and now we have the Prime Minister creating a scare campaign because her carbon tax has no detail around it. It is a shambles. When are we going to hear what the price will be, what the assistance will be? We have the budget coming up in May. None of this seems that it will be even in the budget.
If we could turn quickly to the news poll, it's bounced in both directions this year. Tony Abbott told the party room that Julia Gillard's been hobnobbing with President Obama and Prince William, and he said she may not believe in God, the monarchy or marriage, but there will be a royal wedding bounce. Gay Brodtmann, is Julia Gillard relying on a royal wedding to boost her stocks?
Look, first of all, as you know, we don't comment on polls. They go up and they go down. We just don't comment on them. But the thing is, I think that what people are starting to realise now is that we are actually delivering on our reform agenda. We've got a number of things that have come online just recently in terms of health reforms, in terms of education reforms, in terms of a range of reforms. And the other thing is too that the Prime Minister in recent months her performance has been exceptional. It was she got a great reception in the US in terms of her speech to Congress, and also a great response back home on that. And I think just her performance on Q&A last week was really useful in terms of clarifying her position on a range of issues, and also clarifying the reality about carbon price.
Dan Tehan, as I said, Tony Abbott put some of the Prime Minister's poll bounce into appearing with Prince William, but Tony Abbott was at the same memorial service in Christchurch that Prince William was at. Why didn't he get a bounce out of that?
Look, the polls will go up and down. What I look to is my community and the feedback that I'm getting from them, and that is that they are incredibly disappointed and disturbed that the Prime Minister lied to them before the last election, and they're not going to let her forget that. They're worried about cost of living pressures, and they're worried that this carbon tax will increase those cost of living pressures. That's the feedback I'm getting from my community, and that to me is the poll that I'll be listening to.
Dan Tehan and Gay Brodtmann, that's where we'll have to leave it today. And that's where Capitol Hill ends today. Please join us again tomorrow at the same time.